In the kitchen whipping sauce, whipping sauce, whipping sauce. Texture dripping with the sauce, dripping with the sauce. Finesse getting it with the sauce, getting it with the sauce. In the kitchen whipping sauce, in the kitchen whipping sauce. Whipping sauce, whipping sauce. My texture dripping with the sauce, dripping with the sauce. Flexing on them with.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Chef Life Podcast. Today I have a chef all the way from Ohio. She goes by Chef Linda Berry. Welcome.
Good to be here. Good to be here.
Okay, so let's start it off, Chef. I ask basic questions and then we get into more details afterwards. But why you wanted to become a chef?
I actually was not necessarily, it wasn't a choice when I was growing up. I had two grandmothers that were professional chefs in their own right. One of my grandmothers, she was more or less like someone who baked out of her home, and she would sell her baked goods that way, but she was French classically trained. And then I had another grandmother who had catering company and a restaurant that was also French classically trained. So I grew up around food. Okay. And promised one of my grandmothers that I was never going to go into the culinary industry, but I loved it. So I left my psychology degree and went to culinary school and haven't looked back since.
Okay, so you stopped going to college for psychology and you decided to become a chef.
I did. I grew up in the kitchen.
You grew up in the kitchen. Okay. So, I mean, that's a very ballsy move, no?
It was. I actually, I was probably 2 quarters into college before I even told my family, because I didn't want to face like the disappointment from my parents, my grandparents, because I was in school and they were like, "Oh man, you're gonna make great money." And then I transferred to culinary school, and I don't know how much you know about chefs, but the pay is not that great when you're first starting out. So yeah, they were looking at me like, "Girl, what happened here?"
Let me tell you something. I have this big thing with culinary schools, and you come out of class, you graduate, and you come out getting paid $12 an hour, if that, maybe 15. So I gotta give it to you. You have a lot of heart to leave a major that was gonna pay you 6 figures, and you went off to do this. So I gotta give it to you.
I did, but I found scholarships for culinary school, so the cost that I incurred was very low compared to the average student. I found scholarships to pay my way initially, and then once I got into culinary school, I was so ambitious and led organizations on campus that I was able to continue to accumulate scholarship dollars while I was there. So I didn't have a ton of culinary school debt. And honestly, I used to recruit kids for culinary school, and I would tell them, like, yeah, go to culinary school if you can afford to go to culinary school. Otherwise, that wasn't something that I was recommending, because I understand the debt versus you get out here and you're making $12, $13 to start, and you're looking at everybody at your school with a side eye like, y'all didn't want to tell me this.
Yeah, that's a journey that we all go through, right? I feel like a lot of chefs of, I'm gonna bring race into it like I always do, because that's what I do. A lot of chefs like us didn't have the opportunity to seek out like other, chefs that were black or Hispanic that were well known for advice. Now,
exactly.
Now I see that you're a educator too, right?
I am.
Okay.
I actually.
So are you? It says here that you're the first cannabis instructor, one of the first cannabis instructors.
I am. So I'm one of the first cannabis instructors at a collegiate level in the United States. Meaning that I work for an accredited college, and I teach cooking with cannabis on a level where people receive credits. From the college that I'm at right now, they will graduate with a certificate, but they're working towards a national accreditation where they would be able to eventually graduate with a degree, and I would be one of the instructors that they're getting the education from in order to do that.
Well, god damn. That's fucking amazing. So, with this being said, do you teach how to you teach them how to make butters and stuff, or like how does this work?
I teach them how to do a ton of things. So I teach them how to know how to properly dose without just using a dosing calculator, because you can just go and grab an application and hope that it's correct. But I teach them how to do that math on their own. I teach them how to infuse into different applications, the science behind if you're going to decarboxylate or activate your cannabis, or if you're going to consume it raw. So the decarboxylation process means that I'm going to take my cannabis, I'm activating it thermally. So I'm going to heat that cannabis up so that I get more of the compounds out of it, and then how to extract that into different mediums like butter, like oil, like alcohol, and then infuse that into different foods. Because once you infuse it into an application that's soluble with cannabis, like the butters, like the oils and alcohol, you can take that and infuse anything and then have the cannabis in your food. So for me, I teach more so like the infusion, and you can use it in a recreational way, but my theory and my thoughts are surrounding like holistic health. So everybody takes my class. If you can afford to pay for the class, or if you catch me in a community somewhere, because I also do educational events in the community, like I'm going to teach you everything. But I definitely gear it towards, here's some applications that you can use that aren't necessarily like a brownie or laden with sugar. Like you can put this into a smoothie. You can put this into something that is actually going to help you too, because cannabis does a lot in the body to help you. Like it helps your mind, it helps your joints, it helps your body. So like me, I have rheumatoid arthritis. It helps me to be able to function without pumping my body with a lot of medication.
So there's more. I always tell people there's a lot of health benefits to consuming cannabis, and
Oh, yeah.
with okay, so let's backtrack a little bit, right? I want to backtrack a little bit. So you went to CIA, right? Am I reading this right?
Yep, I did. I went to CIA.
You went to CIA, okay, and after CIA, where did you work at?
After the CIA, I came back to Columbus because at that time I was married. So I did my externship in Miami at the Lowe's, worked with all these incredible chefs from around the world that came down there during either the world, um, the Super Bowl. We had the Super Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, and South Beach Food and Wine. So I made so many connections, and they were like, "Hey, stay in New York City, like come to Vegas, come to Miami." But my husband at the time was like, "Hey, if you don't come back to Columbus, like I don't know if this is gonna work out," because he didn't move to culinary school with me. So after I left the CIA, I actually went back to Columbus, Ohio, and started to kind of work through kitchens there, which was harder. In New York City, I had the top restaurants that were like, "Hey, come in, like pretty much we work with you, so we're offering you positions in a major city." But I get back to Columbus and I couldn't really find those same opportunities. So I started to carve out my own lanes. Like I went directly into education, working with No Kid Hungry, which is Share Strength, which they're huge now. But when I started to work with them, they were just like getting up and going on a national level. So I started doing those community classes, and I was doing private dinners. I also started to work through corporate kitchens and private jets and whatever I can do to make a name for myself, and work my way up through the kitchen ranks in Columbus in the capacity that I was able to. Because honestly, like fine dining restaurants, I was walking in and they were like, where'd you work before? Where'd you go to school? And I would tell them, and I would get shut out like immediately. So I
Damn.
took the CIA off of my resume. Like I didn't even put it on there anymore
Hold on, hold
because
on.
people were like, "Oh, you're gonna be pretentious." Yeah, I took it off.
Ooh, no way. For real? See,
I
that's
did.
damn. That's the bad rep that those students get, man.
Yep. We
Oh,
definitely had students that came out and did kind of put that air on when they got to smaller markets like Columbus. Like, yeah, I went to the CIA so I can come in and run this kitchen. Whereas I came out and I was like, you know what, I just want to learn, because I understood the more that I can learn from really talented chefs, the better I would be in the long term. But chefs weren't even giving me the opportunity to not even come in and stage, which is to work. a shift for free, basically. They were just like, nah, we had bad experiences with the CIA. And if I did get a size and came in as a CIA student, I was working so hard that they were like, I don't know if you really are trying to get the position that you're saying. I think that you're probably trying to go for something higher. And they didn't look at me as somebody that was capable of working like the saute line or the grill station, because that was where I was comfortable. I had already been working in kitchens for about 10 years when I graduated from culinary school. Well, I looked really young, and they were like, a woman in the kitchen, and you trying to work the saute line in the grill station?
Hold up. We gonna backtrack real quick, because you clearly said that you had CIA in your resume, and they said you're not gonna work here. That's insane to me. That's crazy.
Took it off my resume. And then I finally did land a position with a chef that had been on a culinary Olympics team. And he was like, he found out that I went to the CIA. I'm not sure how he found out exactly, but he was like, so you didn't go to culinary school and you came in my first shift working there. I was supposed to be shadowing on the saute station. And I ended up showing the person that I was shadowing how to be more efficient on the station. And he was like, nah, this is not adding up. And he found out that I gone to the CIA. And he was like, why did you take that off of your application? Like, usually that's what they come in and leave with, like, hey, I'm a CIA grad. I'm great. Hire me. Whereas I was like, look, just give me an opportunity. I can come in here and show you better than I could tell you. Because my experience was so bad with the other chefs I've been working with in Columbus, or trying to work with.
Hold up, say that again, because the service was a little bad. What you said right there? Because it broke up a little bit. The last sentence you said.
Okay, I said, so as opposed to me coming in and not necessarily putting that on my resume, my goal was to.
Yeah, you keep breaking up. Do you have headphones on?
I don't have headphones. I can go to a different area of the house, though.
Yeah, because it sounds like you sounded like just slightly muffled right there, and you broke up a little bit.
Give me 1 second. I'll just go sit in the car. I get like a good 10 minutes in, and then the phone does its own thing.
That happens to me, so I ain't gonna lie. That's why I put my shit on Wi-Fi calling.
Right. Well, I'm gonna just go sit in the car. I'll come back in later. All right, this should be much better.
That's way better. And by the way, I want to apologize for having to keep rescheduling. I've been having to do it for the past 2 weeks for everybody. Before I went on vacation,
you're fine.
Before I went on vacation, I had like this crazy ass migraine that lasted for like a week and a half, and it was horrible. So we were talking about how you took the school out your resume, and then the chef that you was working with said that you should put it back on.
Okay, so just start from there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so the chef saw me working on the line, and he was like, no, this isn't adding up. You said that you didn't have, like, culinary school experience, and from what I can tell, like, the experience that you would have had out in the city of Columbus doesn't really add up to the fact that you came in and first day, instead of you being somebody that was getting trained, like, you were showing people in the line how to do their jobs more efficiently. And so he found out that I went to the CIA. He asked me, why did I take it off my resume? I told him why. And after that, I kept it on my resume. But just my experience in Columbus was really, like, I couldn't get a foot in the door until I started to take that off of my resume because, for whatever reason, I mean, I want to believe that it's just that they were dealing with pretentious people from the CIA, but it could have been other variables in there too.
I mean, do you feel like that was the whole truth, or you feel like because you were a minority woman?
Well,
you can speak facts on my show. You can let that shit out, all out. I'm here. I want all the smoke and the tea. You can let it all out.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say that saying that the CIA was the reason is a good cover up for what it probably really was. Because one of the restaurants that didn't even allow me to come in and stage, they hired on someone who I later found out his start was at like a Taco Bell or something crazy like that. And I was like, how did you get into that restaurant? Because I ended up working with this guy later on, a couple years later. And he was like, yeah, you know, I walked in, they interviewed me, they said they liked my personality, and I'm like, so you got a position with them, and your only experience at that point was Taco Bell.
Crazy.
I walk in. I'm not even kidding. Yeah, it was an eye opener of like what was really taking place.
That's like a slap to the face, man. See, that's type of shit that kind of pisses me off, right? Not kind of, it pisses me off all the way, right? A woman like such as yourself, you know, CIA graduate, had experience, but they see you and they get scared and they don't want to give you the job. That's crazy. That's
it is, because I wasn't shrinking myself. I think that if I had gone in there and I was just like, you know, please, I'll take a position on the salad station. I'll wash dishes or something. I was not.
Nah, you should have never had to do that. You should never have to beg for shit. Your resume should speak for its own, and that's for anybody out here listening right now. If you feel like you're getting discriminated on, you shouldn't have to beg for shit. Your resume and your skills should speak for themselves. Fuck that. I think you did the right thing. They said no, whatever, and now look at you. You came out in a magazine. Am I wrong, or was it like a news article? What was that?
It was a magazine. It's a magazine.
Why don't you let the people know what it was real quick?
So, there was a business magazine in Columbus where they were asking 4 of the, I would say, top Black chefs in Columbus why they were not successful in the fine dining space in Columbus, Ohio. And so everyone was giving their perspective. I would say that all of us in the article had to really create our own niche in order to be able to be successful, because even if we were working in these restaurant kitchens, most of the time we never got the opportunity to run the kitchen, even though we were really talented. And these are people, I know 2 of the guys in the article, they've been all over TV. And then Benji's probably worked in most of the fine dining restaurants, never got the opportunity to really move up in management, even though he has decades of experience in fine dining. And then me, I pretty much got shut out outside of, like, you can come in and work the salad and the soup station or the dessert station or something that's lower level and not necessarily a management position. And so I think that it was beneficial to tell the story, because if you walk into a culinary school in Columbus, the people in the culinary schools, they look like me. They're African American. They're African American women. They're people who are like feeding into the thought that meritocracy is a thing. And then they get out into the industry and they realize, oh man, my merits alone are not enough to get me in a position to be able to feed my family. Like some of these fine dining restaurants now, they'll let you come into the door. They'll let you work, and they'll let you work hard. But they're not going to give you the opportunity to be an executive chef no matter how many years that you're there, unless they see something in you that they feel like they can identify with. I don't really know one executive chef in that city that is a person of color. So, yeah.
And when I bring this shit up, you know, People would think that I'm out of my mind, or Mo's doing too much, and no, it's a fucking fact. It's a fucking
Oh,
fact,
it's a fact.
and we gotta bring this shit to light even more. You know, so it's funny because all the slack you was getting, right, and then you came out in this magazine and you got to express yourself. So you know what? I want to give a shout out to all those restaurants that played you. I got one thing to say to them.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
They got no respect for me. No respect. So, okay, so now let's move on a little bit. So, you are now a instructor and you instruct in cannabis cuisine as we spoke before. Now, in this in this class, do you feel like you're able to give back to some minority cooks?
So that mentorship has always been a huge portion of my career. So I do the cannabis education, but I also still do like private dinners and events, or I'll help chefs in the capacity that they want to grow their business. And I've always done that because I knew how my journey was. So like if I see a chef and I know that they're growing their startup, I'm gonna go hard for that person because I know if they win, now they're creating the opportunity for chefs that are coming behind them to now have a position where it can be merit based. It can be if I'm really good, they're gonna give me the opportunity to move up. And I also mentor young chefs, and I take chefs under my wing too. And I'm like, you know what? Let me show you what to do. If you want to work in a restaurant, cool. Let me give you some tips on how to get into that restaurant. And even if they try to shut you out, here are some ways for you to still build your resume, even if that's the case. Like go in there and learn the paperwork side. Even if you have to volunteer, you can at least still put that on your resume, and that'll open up another door for you. For the smaller kids or the kids in business that I mentor, I mentor them from the standpoint of the food, but mostly from the standpoint of mindset, because it can be hard. It can be very tough to be out in an industry where you're thinking, okay, cool, I'm just good at something. And what you realize at the end of the day is that you're only being seen as a worker, outside of creating your own table or working with someone who may respect you. I would say I try to give back as much as I can. I really do.
Now, okay, so you do the private chef dinner and you try to instruct as much as you can. Would you be interested in doing a chef summit?
Sure.
A chef summit, and I'm working on this with a good friend of mine. His name is Chef Courtney Harris, and we discussed that there wasn't as many chefs for us coming up. You have Food Network, but Food Network was full of Caucasian chefs. You had Aaron Sanchez and Marcus Samuelson, and that was about it. And now we get to see more people and more chefs of color in the spotlight. And we're trying to make this summit, and it's not necessarily just for it's not just for black cooks, because I don't want to say that, but we're trying to have chefs from different parts of the industry come to the summit and discuss discuss a way to make it easier or give them the tools that we didn't have coming up. So would you be interested in doing something like that?
I would love to.
All right, cool. That's great. Now I'm recording you and I have you on record, so I'm gonna hold you to that.
You can hold me to it. The funny thing is, like, actually, after that article came out in Columbus, I was getting so many messages from chefs that were like, "Thank you for sharing," because the reality is that everybody kind of knows what's happening, but there is an attachment of I can't really publicly say anything because I'm still trying to work in this space.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I'm like, I pretty much work for myself. I freelance. I work with the college, but when it comes to being in the culinary space, like, you can't blackball somebody that's not in necessarily that space anymore. I'm not working through these kitchens, so I was able to have a voice. And so there's actually going to be like a panel of minority chefs in Columbus now. So, anything that I can do to help in this space to kind of just encourage people, like let them know, no, you're not crazy. And here are some resources for you to really succeed. outside of just the certain niches that we're looked at as being skilled in. Yeah, I definitely want to be a part of that.
Great. All right. So I ask people the same questions all the time. I get 3 questions that I ask them. If you could work with, if you could have a conversation with 3 chefs dead or alive, just to sit back, conversate, drink or smoke, whatever you do. I don't know. Which chefs will they be?
You said 3 chefs?
Yep.
So I would want to talk to Escoffier. I would want to talk to him because I want to know, like, what his thought process was behind the brigade system, and just what he was thinking, what his outlook was, how that went for him, and what he thought the future was going to look like now that I know how it turns out now. I would honestly, and this is not a specific chef, but I would want to sit down with someone who was very skilled in African cuisine prior to slavery taking place. Because I see like the food ways that came out of that, but like I would want to talk to the person that was like, you know what, here's how we make our food, here's how we do our cuisine. Because it's so influential throughout the entire world, whether people give it credit or not. And I think that the last person that I would want to sit down and have a conversation with that is alive and in the United States is probably Naisha Arrington, who's out in California, because I think that she is successful in an industry that is white male dominated, and that means that you have to have a certain level of resiliency. And she not only has that resiliency, but she does it with a smile. And I respect that like immensely. So I would love to sit down with her and like talk through some of the challenges that she had, but also see like how that can be channeled into now we can get a whole group of younger chefs coming up that maybe don't have to go through the same amount of obstacles. And if she thought that was possible.
Okay. That was a great answer. Now, what's people's biggest misconception about you as a chef?
As a chef, their biggest misconception is that I guess that as a culinary educator from that space, that what I do isn't as important as someone that's working in a restaurant setting all the time. And the reason why that's the biggest misconception is because when you are educating people on how to make food and the basic cooking principles, and you're taking the next generation of chefs and you're helping to mold them and helping them advance in their careers, or you're backing somebody up that has a startup, the misconception is that what you're doing is not as valid or that is not as important. But the reality is that I would say it's even more important, because if I'm in a restaurant kitchen, yes, I can reach the people that I'm working with on the line. I can reach the patrons that come into my restaurant establishment. And maybe if I get to a certain level, I can reach a couple more people outside of that circle of my influence. But as an educator, I would say that my hand reaches to a chef. If I train you on how to be an educator, if I train you on how to work in the kitchen, now your reach extends far beyond what my reach is going to be. And so I would say in my career that I've almost been like a hidden figure, because I'm the person behind the person. Like, I'm like the chef's chef. And so that the misconception is that somehow it would be a less important role. And I think teachers in general, like that is the teacher's life, is you are imparting all this information, all this knowledge, many times all of this motivation and resources into someone. And it's important, but it's not flashy.
Okay. So now with that answer, you had my attention before. That's why I called you. But now you really, really got it. And now we about to get into a whole discussion right now. And this phone call is gonna last just a little bit longer now. Okay. So here's how I feel about culinary schools. And you probably heard me say it before. I feel like they charge way too much fucking money. Do you
I'm
not
gonna
agree?
go ahead and agree. I agree with that. And honestly, that is why I teach the way that I teach. At this point in my career, I can get my ACS certification, and I can teach at a culinary school, and that would be great. What I chose to do is mentor culinary students. Like, I still go back to the CIA and talk to the students, and I students to mentor every year. I still connect with local colleges in Ohio, and I mentor those students. But the reason why I teach the education of the culinary side, or I educate us on how to work in the industry or become educators, the way that I do it is because I don't agree with the way that the culinary school system is set up to pay all of these thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, and you come out and you're not making a ton of money. So I would say from the very beginning that I've always been, in a sense, anti-culinary school the way that it is right now. And I've always been working on ways to still support people who may not be able to afford culinary school, or who may not be able to absorb that type of debt going into a job that most of the time, especially in major markets, you're not even able to afford a living space on your own because you're getting paid so low, let alone getting paid, being able to pay back your student loans. So I am in complete agreement with that. If I ever get to the point of being wealthy, my goal is to create a culinary school training program where chefs can come in, and it's not necessarily like a, hey, look at us, we're doing like this good thing for disadvantaged people, but just give people the opportunity to come in, get the education, and not have to be in debt when they get out of culinary school. That is the craziest thing for me. Chefs work so hard in the kitchen, and even when they get out of culinary school, if you go into the kitchen versus working in front of the house, you're still not getting paid the same amount as somebody that, I'm not going to take anything away from the front of the house because I respect them immensely. But the chefs are back there, and they're sweating, they're under duress, they're like pumping out usually great food for hours and hours on end, taking all of that stress on their body, and then they're getting paid pennies on a dollar. So I'm trying to shake the system up a little bit. Like, I need probably a couple more years to be able to do that, but that is definitely a goal of mine, is to be able to create this structure and this educational program where I'm able to do that. And so on the lower level right now, I want to do that in the cannabis space. So I'm working on a program where I would take people that want to become cannabis chefs and be able to train them on that aspect of the industry without them having to incur a ton of debt to be able to do that.
God damn it. That's what I like to hear, man. You know, a lot of people, and me myself, I thought this conversation was going to go a long way left. But you know what? You said everything I wanted to hear. So we're good. But there's a lot of people that talk smack about it, including myself, right? And I can't do anything about it. And I'm happy that someone like you is at least taking the proper steps to do something about it, because I feel like it is the biggest, I'm just going to say it, man. It's like a fucking fraud. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, right, even now, these culinary schools open back up, but COVID it's not gone. And the industry is still hurting. So why the fuck are the schools open? Why? Why are they open?
So, as someone who was in culinary school during the Great Recession and could not find like the type of jobs that I was promised coming into culinary school, not necessarily promised, but told that would be available, but there were just no job positions out in the industry because everybody was holding on to them. I identified that this is happening again. And I knew how hard it was for the students that graduated with me to find positions. But I can only imagine in a post-COVID environment where people are literally losing their restaurants, the industry is suffering, and they will continue to suffer unless there is some type of tangible change that I cannot see happening anytime soon. Yeah, I don't see why the culinary schools are like, yeah, but keep coming in. We're taking in new students. We're going
Girl,
to give the future chefs of America an opportunity to get their education on. But they know that the students are going to come out and they're going to enter an environment that's unprecedented. Like they're going to enter an environment where it's going to be a dog eat dog world.
and it's uncharted. We don't know what's gonna happen, right? We don't know what's
Yeah,
gonna happen.
we have literally no idea. No idea. And so when people are like, man, you went to culinary school, like, why didn't you come out and work in a restaurant? Why did you start a catering company? Or why did you start your own business?
Because it's so fucking easy,
For
right?
many people, yeah, well, not even that is just super easy. You can actually afford to have your family live. Like, coming out in COVID, it's going to get competitive. And so you can get pennies on the dollars. Now, when you get out of culinary school, there really is going to be like, take it or leave it. Because there are not that many opportunities if things continue to go the way that they're going. So people, they're going to get out of culinary school, and we're going to continue to see all these entrepreneurs that are coming out, which is why programs that combine culinary arts and business are so essential, especially for people of color. Because for the most part, when you become successful, it's usually not because you're working under this great restaurant system. It's because you started to carve your own lane. And so being able to do that and do that in a way that is legal, that your T's are crossed, your I's are dotted, is also important. So hopefully some of these students get out and they get connected to the business resources as well if they're going to culinary school, because that's going to become crucial for people in culinary school that are coming out. Or they're going to be like most people and change their careers completely.
Yeah, that's see that even I'm not ashamed to say it, and I said it before in a different show. Shit, I'm still on unemployment, and my job's telling me that maybe January, and I'm looking for work, and I tell my wife, I said, listen, I don't want to jump into a restaurant, and then they close down, and then I have to go through the whole process of getting filing unemployment, waiting to get paid. It took me 4 months to get paid from unemployment. I'm worried that if I take a job, they close down, I'm going to have to wait again to get it again. So I'm not putting myself through that. I do my little side hustles here and there, the most I can, collect my unemployment, pay the bills, and keep it pushing. Because I'm not trying to jump. It's so not like, it's so uncharted that if I take a job, can you imagine I take a job and I'm getting paid, and the next thing I know is, oh man, we got to shut down a restaurant. Nope. I'm not doing that. And
yeah.
And I feel like these kids are gonna, like you said, they're gonna get out of school, they were promised jobs, and they ain't gonna be shit. It's not gonna be nothing. It's
gonna be sad, and the discouragement that they're gonna face. Like, I think that what people don't understand is being in the kitchen is already stressful enough. Mm-hmm. But when you feel like, man, I put this time in, I put this work in, the mental stress that puts onto your life, like of being depressed, of feeling like I wasted this time. Now you're uncertain about yourself. Which that also takes a toll. So I mean, I totally get that on many levels, and not just from the restaurants just closing down, but say the government decides that, hey, this is a hot spot, we're gonna close down this area of your city or this area of your state. Like, there are so many variables. Even if your restaurant is still able to be successful, we really just don't know in this environment, like, what it is. So for me, the way that I safeguarded myself, I actually pivoted to putting myself online. Like, I have my classes that are online now. My events, I'm about to work on a way to put them online so that you can still experience them, but not necessarily have to work on feeling like you got to muster up some courage to come to an in-person event. Because I would say before COVID, 80% of my business was in person. And now I'm shifting that to being the opposite. Now it's going to be 80% online, 20% in person, so that I'm not a casualty of putting myself at risk to not have any type of income. Because COVID hit, and I was looking like, I'm going to be living off of my savings. This is crazy. But luckily, I was already working on the online piece, so I was able to shift all my classes online immediately. And now I can just continue to grow that and see how that works.
That's great. So in the famous words of Jay-Z, you clearly told yourself,
I'm focused, man.
And you got it on point. So listen, heads up to you and heads up to everything you're doing. I'm happy that you were able. Now listen, I'm gonna say this. I'm happy that you were able to get on a magazine, right, and tell everybody out there who doubted you to fuck off. Cause I know that's what it felt like. I know that's what it felt like. You can act modest, you can act humble. It's fine. But I know when you came out in that magazine and you told your story, you felt like you were like, yeah, I fucking made it, and anybody who doubted me could fuck off. Is that not how you felt? You don't want to say it because you're on the podcast, but it's fine. You clearly told him to
Put some respect on my name.
What I felt?
Mm-hmm.
I felt like in that moment that the empowering part for me wasn't me necessarily saying like, yeah, I made it, like look at me now. It was like I'm resilient, and so like you tried it, but it didn't work. And so hopefully, if nothing else comes out of anything that I ever do, hopefully at least that little portion of my journey can just become a source of inspiration for somebody else to keep going, even when you feel like you're getting shut out, even when you feel like you're not getting heard, even if you feel like, man, I don't even know who this person is. They're getting the opportunities that I've been busting my butt to get. Like, people like me, I mean, I feel like I could have quit a whole lot of times, but that article really showed, like, girl, you've been resilient and you're going to continue to be resilient, whether it's something that you can control or not control.
Hey, listen, I'm happy for you, and I'm happy that everything's working out for you. So, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for taking time. I know it took some time for us to do this because but I really, really appreciate it. So, is there anything?
Oh, thank you.
Do you want to put in your plugs in now? You can put all your plugs in, your Twitter, your IG, your Facebook, all that.
So if you want to know more about my story, some of the things that I've done, definitely check out my website, Chef L as in Linda, cheflberry.com. Gives you a little bit more of my story in the industry, what I do in terms of community service and organizations I work in that space, in the cannabis space. I journey with the Cleveland School of Cannabis, my girl Chef Nikki, like the capacity that we work with each other in, and some of the other chefs that I work with. Check me out on Instagram. I usually am way better at posting my stories than posting them on wall, but on Instagram it's at Very Savvy Chef. That's SAVVY Chef. And yeah, keep connected with me. Like if there's something I can do to help you or some words of encouragement that I can give you, reach out. I would love to talk to you guys. Thank you again for having me on. I appreciate you. I'm like a hidden figure, so this is dope for me. So thank you.
No, thank you for coming on. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Chef Linda Berry in the building. And in case you was wondering, it's berry like the fruit, like she told me, because I wanted to make sure I was saying it right. So, Chef Linda Berry, thank you so much for coming out. I appreciate you.
All right, it was good to be here. I look forward to the future.
All right, bye.